Want to understand the basics of jazz harmony? Then play Bach's first Prelude from the Well-Tempered Clavier, or just listen to it. Charles Gounod wrote his famous, highly romantic Ave Maria based on it. With this seemingly harmless arpeggio sequence, Bach has already used the most important concepts of modern harmony. In this video, we show you how 7 features of jazz theory are anticipated in it. The rhythm of the prelude is as regular as it can be. However, in a certain way, it anticipates a model that is particularly popular in Latin jazz. It divides the pulse into 3, 3, and 2 beats. Originally, this division, which can be found in Africa, Cuba, and also in Tango Nuevo, goes back to the Spanish habanera. We are very familiar with this pattern from Bizet's habanera from Carmen, a dotted 8th note, a 16th note, and 2 8th notes. In many contemporary styles, the 16th note is tied to the penultimate 8th note, and you already have the flowing 3-3-2 pattern. In the C major prelude, Bach develops the pattern from the back. He divides the pulse into 2, 3, and 3 beats. However, the basic idea of making the even meter of a 4/4 time more sensual with syncopation remains the same. It is pure musical combinatorics. How can 8 beats be divided in such a way that an unusual sensual tension is created? Another universal technique is the entanglement of levels asynchronously in order to capture the listener's attention with surprising twists. The highly influential music psychologist Leonard Meyer has shown that we are constantly speculating unconsciously about what might come next. If the progression does not meet our expectations, this increases our attention and we experience the surprises as enjoyable, just like the punchlines of jokes. Intertwined structures multiply this vying for attention. But of course, it must be done in the right measure. As we have seen, Bach's Prelude presents us with an unrestrictedly predictable, regular structure on the rhythmic level. We therefore shift our cognitive interest to other levels, especially harmony. And that's where Bach actually plays tricks on us. The Prelude begins with a textbook 2-5-1 cadence, which defines a 4-bar cadential pattern and is immediately confirmed in a smaller variant with a 2-5-1 cadence in the dominant key and a return to C major. But then Bach introduces a subtle stumbling block. The next 2-5-1 cadence is condensed into 3 bars in bars 9 to 11. This is followed by 4-bar blocks that string together variations of cadences in no apparent order. They end partly on perfect cadences and partly on imperfect cadences on the dominant. This means that the completely regular rhythmic pattern of the prelude is contrasted with a complex, unpredictable harmonic progression pattern. Really interesting jazz standards follow precisely this architectural idea. Jazz thrives on the basic pattern of the 2-5-1 cadence. Bach's Prelude could be seen as a basic exercise in how this pattern can be varied. Let's take a closer look. In the first, third, fourth, and fifth blocks, the classical pattern, second degree in minor, dominant, and tonic, is hardly varied. In the fourth block, the second degree is introduced by a secondary dominant, and in the fifth by a subdominant. The terms tonic, dominant, and subdominant were not yet in use in Bach's time. However, we do not want to carry out an analysis here that takes historically appropriate theories into account. A little further down, we will also talk about dominant chords with a minor ninth. In Bach's time, this harmonic thinking did not yet exist. The corresponding chords, on the other hand, are certainly present in the prelude. In the second block, the basic cadence is extended to a 6-2-5-1 pattern, with the 2 as in secondary dominant to the dominant. The sixth block leads via the tonic as in secondary dominant to the subdominant and the 2 as in secondary dominant to the dominant to a half cadence. Blocks 7 and 8 confirm the half cadence. The ninth block ends the prelude with a full cadence. It is introduced with a secondary dominant to the subdominant. The prelude contains chords that were interpreted as diminished chords in Bach's time. However, a jazz pianist automatically reads them as perfect voicings of rootless dominant seventh chords with a minor ninth, first in bar 12 in A, then in bar 14 in G, which over bars 12 to 16 results in a perfect 6-2-5-1 cadence widely used in jazz. The harmony from bars 22 to 25 results in a descending fifth chain to C via D7, minor 9, and G7, minor 9. Finally, in bar 28, the D7 minor 9 chord is a secondary dominant to G in bar 30 with an inserted CSU's chord. The transition from bar 22 to bar 23, which we interpret as a descending fifths progression in terms of jazz harmony, caused music theorists headaches after Bach's death. The harmonic progression results in two false relations. We speak of false relations when a note in one voice is followed by its altered variant in another voice. Here it is F sharp in the bass in bar 22 and F in the tenor in bar 23, as well as A in the alto in bar 22 and a flat in the bass in bar 23. Bach's editors therefore believed that a bar had to be inserted between them. Printed evidence of this can be found in an edition by Christian Friedrich Gottlieb Schwenk from 1802, which is why the bar has gone down in music history as Schwenk's bar. However, the insertion destroys the four-bar group architecture of the prelude. It is no longer found in the new Urtext edition of Bach's works. The prelude contains three major 7 chords, the basic chord of jazz harmony. In bar 8 there is a C major 7 chord, in bar 16 an F major 7 chord, and in bar 21 another F major 7 chord. The chords sound independent, but Bach legitimizes them with classical voice leading rules. In measure 8, the seventh in the bass is an appoggiatura to the root of the A minor chord in measure 9. And in measures 16 and 17, the same applies to the seventh E, which is led to the root of the D minor chord. The voice leading in measures 21 and 22 is interesting. Here, the major seventh is continued chromatically inward, from F in the bass to F sharp and from E in the upper voice to E flat. Towards the end of the prelude, a pedal point introduces a slash chord. In jazz harmony, this term refers to chords played over any bass note that is not part of the chord. In measure 28, this is D7 minor 9 / G. The prelude ends with two veritable licks, one over the subdominant, one over the 5-1 chord progression, which concludes with a kind of enclosure. Bach was a brilliant consummator of an era of music who set standards in composition theory with his late theoretical works. Despite all his seriousness, his subtle humor always shone through, for example in one of his very first works, the Goldberg Variations. In this video you can find out why he himself described them as a hodgepodge. Don't miss it. And subscribe to our channel because the best is yet to come.